ourselves. We live behind a military barricade. So it's not your neighbors that are dying, it's poor brown people in other parts of the world. They will breathe a sigh of relief when all this is over. I want to stop that process. And along with that, I mean, I want to see more songbirds. I want to see more fish. I want to see more turtles. I would love to see a wolf at some point in my life. I would love to see bison. I mean, this is what we say when he says a place to call home. Those are my kin. I mean, that's not like, you know, some vision that's just sort of, this is my kin, this is my blood and bones. I want to defend those people. You know, there were 60 million bison on this continent at one point. You have to go to like some bizarre state park now to see them, like, you know, in this little tiny enclosure. Like, so I don't know, I mean, to me, this is the only thing that resonates. This is my heart, this is my soul. I don't understand why. I want to stop the destruction. And so that's the motivating ethic for all of this.
I think your response could be that the 98% of us who are not going to throw ourselves into the machine for various reasons are the ones that have to build. You had a really good dichotomy a couple of slides ago when you had that one. The 98%ers, we're on the left. We're creating the democratic bottom-up structure on the left. I want to do 30 seconds. Everybody should read Wallerstein's World Systems Analysis, Marxist analysis. And I want to try and link what you're talking about in the local, you said CELDF. Well, the teabaggers at the local level actually have the same agenda. So we need to draw a bridge to those local communities when they get pressed by the capitalist world system. We can work with them. They get it on that gut level when it's happening to them. We shouldn't forsake that.
Okay, got another here.
Yeah, I have a question for the first speaker. I missed her name, I'm sorry. So my question is sort of about Marx and capitalism. I think most people in this room would probably agree with the fact that environmental degradation, we can't get away from it until we get away from capitalism. So some people could disagree with me.
Louder.
So discussing the linkage between environmental degradation and capitalism, and you discussed that Marx had sort of the best understanding of capitalism out of everyone. What I'm wondering is, Marx obviously famously argued that every economic system has both its strength and its own demise by virtue of the way it functions, and of course he focused on the means of production, how that led to sort of the bipolar class stratification, which would eventually become capitalism's demise. And what my question comes down to then is, how do we reconcile that with what we see in modern stages of capitalism in terms of multiple stages of class stratification? Where does change come from, I guess?
That's a good question. I'm going to answer this in a separate way. For one thing, I think there's a difference between a weak Marxism and a soft Marxism, or probably a strong Marxism, right? Like, how far are we going to take this? And so some of the strongest Marxist theorists right now, such as Eugene, right, they subscribe to more of a weak Marxism. And also, you know, Marx's analysis of what he says, primitive cultures, right? That's pretty bad. And it's, in some ways, it wasn't his fault, because before anthropology, you know, around, we had a better understanding of these cultures. I'm not actually sure how to answer the question. But,
I'm not a big Marxist, so to me it's just wherever there's oppression, there's going to be resistance. So, you know, even if it's from these horrible, huge global systems, and it's gone global at this point, I mean, it's everywhere, but there's always resistance. And so, you know, just the question is, fine, how do you support it? How do you make it happen? You know, how do you break through the accommodation of denial of consent and go ahead and, you know, plan for those confrontations with power? So I don't know that I can answer your question any better than that. Not really being a Marxist at all. So, you know, how about disagreement?
So you're back to the first question. I think what a lot of people are worried about is, what does it look like? What does it taste like and smell like in the future after you've brought down this infrastructure? Use the Irish as an example. They were returning to their Gaelic history and culture. We don't have an alternative culture. We don't have something that we're going back to. Or what are we replacing with this empty, non-infrastructure now? All of us in this room, maybe a very few, know what it's like to not have oranges all year round. You know what I mean? Like, we aren't even the best of us in here. have everything we want whenever we want. And you're proposing taking that away from us. And that's frightening. And so I think what the question is what motive do we have for our human carnal needs as right now that we only know how to experience? Why should we do this?
We're all going to die if we don't.
We're all going to die anyway.
It's for the better of like our environment.
I agree, but how are you going to have popular support? How is it going to work?
We have everything we see.
Exactly.
Not everything we want. Big difference between
The rest
all
of the
we
world,
want in life.
the rest of the world, yes, they're going to be relieved suffering, but all of us in this room are going to be suffering. But in our here and now, with the people that leave.
Well, this is why the struggle
I'm
here,
not saying I agree.
it's
I'm
different.
fighting for other people here.
This is why the situation that we're in right now is different, I think, than any other movement that's ever existed. Because in the past, you could always count on the local population at least understanding that the invaders sucked. And right now, people have been so fully metabolized into this that they identify with it. So we're up against something that no one's ever been up against before, which is going to make it really hard. And frankly, it's one of the reasons that I don't see a lot of hope in places like the United States. I see a lot more hope in places like Nigeria, where they know who the enemy is. And the, one of the stories that I love was from the Irish resistance again. This young guy's 14, 15, he's walking with his dad on the street and they get attacked by the British soldiers and they start beating the crap out of his father. So of course he intervenes, but he ends up getting shot in the process. And it's his neighborhood, so he knows where to hide. He crawls up into an alley and he's bleeding out. And then he's lucky because it's 3 o'clock, so all the men start coming home from the factory. And the line that I love, that just was imprinted in my brain, said, they knew what a bullet wound was and they knew what to do. So they saw this young kid lying there bleeding to death. They knew what had happened. They didn't have to ask him. But they knew where to take him, what the safe house was, what doctor they could trust. They weren't part of the struggle, but they supported it because they knew the British sucked. We're never going to be in that position. We're always going to be in this position of being in a hostel. And the more success we have, the more they're going to hate us. And we just have to accept that and do it anyway. Because what's at stake is everything. It's every single thing you love is about to die. We may not feel that emergency yet, but it's coming. Well, it looks like people are breaking up. So if you want to stay and talk, that would be great. But that's the end. Thanks for coming.